Hello and welcome to your March edition of Essential Cardano360, your monthly roundup of just some of the latest news and developments from across the Cardano ecosystem, brought to you by the team at IOG. Before we dive in, if you're watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get all the latest and greatest news about Cardano from the team here, and hit that thumbs up to boost the algo. So as we approach the end of the first quarter, Cardano development has kept up the pace with all the building happening across the ecosystem and the acceleration of the Voltaire governance journey. 2024 has started as it means to go on in this, our busiest and most exciting year yet. As the building continues, we'll hear from some of the creators behind Axo and Maestro a little later in the show. We'll also have our first core tech update of the year with Marcin, Sam and Leonard giving us an update on the P2P, peer-to-peer, upgrade rolling out over the next few months. Plus Fred Grigard from the Cardano Foundation will be dropping by to share some of the highlights from the work they've been doing to advance operational resilience, education and Cardano adoption. But first up, as we head into the next phases of the governance journey, let's get an update from Intersect's Jack Briggs, who was joined by Open Source Director Nicholas Clark to share more on how Intersect is building out the mechanisms for wider developer contribution to the core stack and other ways for the community to get involved.
Hi, I'm Jack Briggs, Head of Marketing and Communications at Intersect. I'm joined by Nick Clark, Engineering Director at Tweeg and Chair of Intersect's Open Source Committee. But before I hand off to Nick, here's a couple of quick highlights from Intersect in March. We've recently launched a DREP Pioneer Programme. For those that don't know, DREPs, or Delegate Representatives, are a vital part of Cardano's governance design. DREPs operate within a liquid democratic framework, which essentially means that ADA holders can become a DREP themselves and vote directly on governance actions, or alternatively they can delegate their voting power to a DREP to vote on their behalf. And as we embark on this new governance journey and all the new roles that it brings, participation and inclusion are critical characteristics for a healthy system overall. And of course, education is a core pillar for that. So building off the progress that the community has already made on DREPs through numerous global workshops, Intersect are opening up a new DREP Pioneer Programme grant, but we're specifically looking for applications from capable member organisations to deliver a unified DREP Pioneer course to the Cardano community overall. And essentially that means that they become Pioneer Workshop leaders. So if you're interested in collaborating on the design and launching the programme as Pioneer Workshop leaders, grants of up to 25,000 ADA are available, and you can head over to Intersect to find out a bit more. There are numerous opportunities for Intersect members to also participate and contribute in other ways to the rollout of on-chain governance, most notably through committees and working groups, and also building the tools and materials needed to improve the quality of decisions that we as a community will take in the near future. Following on from the education and media grant category, we've recently opened up a funding opportunity to improve inclusion and accessibility. So that also includes funding for local meetups, virtual workshops that cover the breadth of Cardano's governance. So that's it from me. If you want to learn more, head over to intersectmbo.org and apply today for those funding opportunities. Now to Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Nicholas Clark. In my day job, I'm an engineering director at Modus Create, which I think the community will better know as Tweeg. So we've been involved in the development of Cardano for a number of years. I myself was deeply involved in the design of the ledger and consensus through from the Shelley era until now. And I'm mostly here as chair of the Intersect Open Source committee. So we're made up of a bunch of people, including developers on the Cardano programs, but also people from other organizations that might get involved, such as myself, and also community members, various people who've been involved at a technical level on designing products and designing core parts of Cardano. So we're mostly an advisory body for acting up to the technical steering committee who actually are making the decisions. And our focus is on working out what is that strategy to turn Cardano into a successful project. And our main goals as we do that are basically to transition to this phase while maintaining the legitimacy of the sort of the core Cardano network, making sure that it's sustainable for the long run so that we have the relevant developers with expertise, the relevant sort of community involvement, that this actually becomes a project that will run successfully for the next N years. So how are we doing that? Well, we're trying to act in a couple of directions. Basically, we're acknowledging that Cardano is a very established product with a number of years of development behind it. It's a complicated code base. It's very research driven, so it's not something that people can just jump into and start contributing, as it were. So we're trying to go from two ends. The first end is looking at strategy, so is looking at, as a first step, how do we, what is the best path to making that transition? And so some of the first work we're doing is to build this kind of strategy. And then at the other end, looking at what concrete actions can we take now to start enabling people to go in. So on that basis, the first step was we've moved all of the development of the core Cardano node is now over in an Intersect controlled Git repository. As a same step, we're starting to look at some of the thornier issues. So I think one of the major ones that we're looking at now is for example, security. Cardano is in a very interesting position that it's a public network that anybody can get involved in. So we have to take security very seriously. As we transition to an open source development model, we need to have policies in place for, well, how do we handle security vulnerabilities? Who gets to know about them? How do we ensure that they get fixed without exposing them, which could expose the network to attacks? Another thing that we're looking at is how to start getting people involved in particular components of the node that they're interested in. So as a first example, Marcin from the network team, the Ouroboros network project, that is one of the key components determining how do nodes talk to each other, how do they participate in the network, has started running a network working group to try to pull in people who are interested in contributing to that part of the code base, working out, well, how can we get them involved? How can we bring them up to speed to enable them to be able to take part in the development of that? So the last thing I wanted to mention was just a brief note about sort of future plans. At the moment I've talked a lot about the core Cardano, or Cardano core, what we think of, the parts that make up the node, really the core infrastructure for running the network. So Intersect ultimately will also be interested in wider things, other products developed on Cardano, really having an open community of people building things for Cardano, talking about things like GovTool, also talking about potential other products that interact. So the intention is also that we want to build this open source infrastructure for developing of other components. And the main reason I've talked about the Cardano core is just that, in terms of short-term actions, this is sort of the priority, is how do we take this sort of core component and make it open. But we also have a wider focus on, in the long run, of building this open ecosystem that's using Cardano, the Cardano project, as a basis for developing solutions. So how can people get involved? There should be a couple of links somewhere. The first would be to basically the open source committee's Git book. So all of the meetings we have, all of the work that we do is documented in a Git repository and is published in a form that anyone can access. So I'd invite you all to go and look at that. And we're trying to transition communications over to Matrix in a form, again, that everyone can come in to gradually move some of the development conversation to public Matrix channels. So there's a link to the Intersect MBO organization on Matrix, and anybody is welcome to come and join in there and take part in those conversations. So thank you very much for inviting me.
So thanks to Jack and Nicholas for that, and make sure you check out the links mentioned in that video. And for anyone interested in being part of the DREP Pioneer Programme and the April workshop, be sure to connect with the Intersect team. And remember, for the latest governance updates from Intersect, sign up for their newsletter, join the monthly town halls, and don't forget to follow them on X. P2P network is essential for the long-term decentralization, security and resilience of blockchains, enabling peer-to-peer communication, data synchronization and consensus among participants. In March last year, Dynamic P2P automated the peer selection process, and the next and the final waypoint in the journey towards full P2P node operations is planned to arrive with the upcoming Ouroboros Genesis release. Marcin, Sam and Leonard stopped by to share a little more about why the upcoming release is important and what SPOs, exchanges and community members should do in preparation for the change. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Now, Marcin, let's start with you. Can you tell us why peer-to-peer networking is important for Cardano?
So peer-to-peer further enhances the decentralization of the network and is critical for security and resilience of Cardano. The networking team put a lot of effort to provide a really robust network solution for Cardano. We designed it from the beginning to have in mind performance, network performance, and security. Ouroboros requires some constraint how quickly blocks are delivered, and we continuously, together with our partners from CF, are monitoring how nodes are distributing blocks, and we're really happy that we provided a solution that solves the problem in the right way and provides Cardano a very robust networking solution. More or less a year ago, people started to experiment with P2P stack, the new networking stack, and we've seen a steady growth of SPOs using the new networking stack. Cardano Foundation is tracking roughly 4K nodes on the network, and they are able to say that more than 2,200 of them are actually using peer-to-peer. Right now, we're also asking SPOs to switch to use P2P nodes on all of their relays and also their block production nodes. This will further increase the amount of P2P nodes on the network. Let's also reflect on what P2P brought to the community and to the SPOs. It gives them automation, because now it's very easy actually for SPOs to run a node. The node will automatically find new peers, select them to deliver the best performance for the network, and adjust itself to the changing conditions. We also put a groundbreaking design in the blockchain ecosystem, how to rely on the information that blockchain provides. For us, it's the stake distribution that is secured by the consensus algorithm. So every node can actually trust it. And we're using that information to construct the overlay network. It also provides eclipse evasion avoidance capabilities for Cardano, which is something that hasn't been seen yet on other blockchains.
And Marcin, P2P has been an ongoing process for a while. Can you tell us more about that journey?
In March 2023, dynamic peer-to-peer was introduced and automated the peer selection process. So the first P2P release, we developed a whole new network component of Cardano node. Specifically, it came with 3 very important components. The lowest level was a connection manager, really sophisticated state machine that manages the state of a connection in a secure way. That component brings one feature that was required from the very beginning, that we can punch holes in firewalls. That might be actually important for end users who would like to participate in the network in a similar way that SPOs are running their nodes in data centers. On top of that, we developed 2 governors. One is outbound governor, which provides or maintains outbound connections, and is responsible for maintaining targets for hot, warm, and cold peers. It's all about connectivity to other nodes. And a kind of a dual component, which is called inbound governor, which reacts to state changes on the incoming connections. And that was the thing that came out in March 2023. Since then, we worked very hard to develop these components, to enrich them with new functionality. It came with big ledger peers, which is a new notion of a ledger peer, which is developed to secure the network and make it robust against eclipse attacks. Then we also enriched the outbound governor with peer sharing. The current version was tested by our peers in Cardano Foundation, and they are very happy actually how peer sharing works. And peer sharing is secured by big ledger peers. And the next feature that we're about to release, which is called Bootstrap peers. Bootstrap peers is a feature that allows nodes to sync from the browse consensus algorithm. Doesn't solve that for us. This will be solved by the Ouroboros Genesis. The Bootstrap peers run by Emurgo and IOG. We also enhanced the consensus side, and we work on a little feature there, which is called dynamic block production. It's something that is very useful if one wants to run what is called hot stand-up node. This is a little bit a fancy way of running backup solution for a block production node, where it's a running node with block production disabled, and then you can the person that is operating the node can dynamically make it into a node that is producing blocks. And further work on this front is being delivered by Welltype, which is a CAS agent, something that's been in development for a while. And it will be also delivered summer this year.
So Sam, what's involved for technical stakeholders here?
If you're an SPO, a dapp, an exchange, or other user of the Cardano ecosystem, there's not much you have to do at all to upgrade to P2P. It's literally just changing some values in your topology file that's provided as part of the node configuration, as Marcin just alluded to. The P2P system automatically discovers good nodes for you to connect to, and third-party tooling that integrates with the Cardano node doesn't need to know anything about the P2P system to get the most optimal connections on your node.
So, Leonard, a key part of this rollout is obviously testing with the community and technical stakeholders, dapps, exchanges, as Sam has mentioned. What should they do to get involved?
Stakeholders have a number of avenues they can go through. We're going to be releasing this pre-release on mainnet. Our target really is to slowly roll this out, take feedback from the SPOs and users that install P2P, and then they can go to Discord, they can go to the P2P mainnet or testnet channels and record the feedback. Equally, they can just reach out to Cardano Foundation, Marcin, Sam Leathers, and folks like who are basically on that channel. Obviously, of course, we would encourage folks to log an issue if they have it, post it on GitHub, and then we would come back to them. Our goal here really is to get folks installing P2P, upgrade on mainnet, and then we start to get those measures and metrics as to seeing how it's performing, and we can take action based on that.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. So thanks to Sam, Marcin and Leonard for that. And if you missed the recent IOG blog explaining what peer-to-peer does and what it means for Cardano, check it out using the link below. Next, let's catch up with some builders. Many of you will be familiar with Axo, the trading protocol looking to leverage Cardano's EUTXO model to drive innovation across the DeFi space. Maestro is a leading Web3 development and tools business on a mission to improve the developer experience on Cardano, a mission that lies behind their recent release of new templates for smart contract development. IOG's Matthew Capps sat down with both projects to hear the latest.
Jarek, thanks so much for joining us on the Cardano360 show. Could you give us a brief introduction to yourself and also to Axo for anybody who isn't aware?
Hi, my name is Jarek Hyrniak. I'm the founder of Axo, and before Axo, I've used to work over 10 years in international finance, and Axo has been born as a project of passion. So when working in international finance, I've got to see very closely how the trading works on very fundamental level, and also encounter a lot of very challenging issues to solve. And Axo is my answer to that, and basically something that younger Jarek would love to have access to. So what is Axo? Axo is next generation trading protocol, which brings DeFi on par with TradFi. Using Axo, you can create any trading algo you want and deploy directly on chain. Axo offers a wide range of order types such as limit, market, bracket, take profit, stop loss, DCA, indexes, and many more. And you have access to full order book and many other features you may be familiar from traditional finance.
You just mentioned there, Axo is a massive product and vision, really. And you've brought the foundation of that to chain now. What has the first couple of months been like?
twofold: a very busy, monitoring and potential issues, implementing fixes, features, etc. So the launch was a bit hectic, like as every launch has unfortunately to be. However, in the background, we've been processing on a lot of things that we had put a lot of effort since the project beginning in, and that basically has to do with regulations. And this also means like we followed all the steps along the way for everything to be in the place, basically following the best practices in the field. And now, we're also reaping fruits of that, because when it came, for example, to the exchange listings, it's a very smooth sailing. So, to anyone who is in a situation like this, I always recommend to do your homework first, because some mistakes you make are very hard to undo. And I think, unfortunately, some of the founders, they get themselves into this pickle.
Maybe you can tell us then, what does it take to set the foundation for a product like Axo to be successful?
Well, that has a lot of many different components, but I will focus on the most important one, right? You have to understand what people want to use, right? So you have to connect with your community, right? And the complicated part about that is the product you are building also attracts that community, right? So if you ask people what they want, you will hear a lot of different answers, right? But you have to answer the question what people truly need and follow from there. And Axo is personally a project of passion of mine, right? So I've not only seen how the sausage is made, I've been making the sausage, right? I've been one of the 50 people who actually understand how the entire traditional trading works on the fundamental level, and I've seen many flaws on that, being from how hard it is to enter it for everybody and to a lot of technical deficiencies, right? And I brought this passion and put it all into the Axo, right? So Axo for me is to answer to a lot of problems that Jarek 5 or 10 years ago had, right? And I believe it's something that also people are enjoying using. And I think as the time goes, people realize how powerful the idea is behind the Axo, right? Because it allows you to express any trading intents. It's not just one dapp, like a DEX or any brewing, etc., right? It fundamentally allows you to express all trading ideas and code them on chain. So you hold the ownership of your assets, right? But at the same time, you can provide guarantees such as, a fairness of matching, right? So you remove the entire possibility for high frequency trading, right? The speed is no longer an advantage. The only advantage you have is the information, right? And it completely changes the game. And what I like the most about that, it makes the playing field much more even for people with different backgrounds and different capabilities.
Well, where is Axo at the moment in development, and what can people look forward to next?
Axo has been launched February 6th. We are now going through all the improvements, so we are getting a lot of great feedback from the community. Now we are focusing on two most important aspects. First is making the user experience, and that's in big part driven by the community feedback, and another part driven by our own observations. Great. So it's getting to a point of stability, but then also expanding the Axo reach, right? So that's the main drive now. And then we have a very exciting roadmap that we're going to be entering. And, we are going to be working on everything from indexes, lending, options, prediction markets, synthetics, and so on. But there is one last thing in there, which we keep as a mystery. And I think is going to be potentially much bigger than the entire list. But you know us, right? We like to take our time, do the things right, and only then give the announcement. So it's going to take a while, right? But I think it's going to be really significant for the space.
That is really exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to the upcoming announcement, and also just all of the foundation laying that you're doing right now with bringing in the liquidity, getting the listings, and working on user experience. It's inspiring to see. So if people want to keep up with Axo, where should they go?
Please go to axo.trade and go to @axotrade on X. And I really recommend to everyone to join the Discord community. We have a lot of very active members, and you would be surprised who likes in Axo Discord. And we have very both simulating trading discussions, but also very thriving, kind of like a Hyde Park, when you can make very interesting friends from across the Cardano. But what's also interesting in this science launch, we've been very busy working on integrations with other platforms. So, for example, like our side of integration with Dexhunter is ready. I know Dexhunter is working on their part. We've developed widgets for integrating Axo in different sites. So, for example, like we've been in the talks with Cerberus, among other projects, like to put the Axo trading widget there. And you may not even realize you're already using Axo in a sense. And I'm most excited about those direct integrations because Axo is able to offer a superior, like a trading ability. So like you'll get a better execution price, you have a smoother experience. So, it basically means bringing Axo to more people, which I'm very excited about.
That is very exciting. Well, Jarek, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Matt.
So Martin, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Can you give a brief intro to yourself and also to Maestro?
Yes, great to be here. So I'm Marvin Burton. I am the CEO and co-founder of Maestro. So Maestro essentially is an advanced infrastructure provider for Cardano. It provides a dapp development platform that really makes it easy to build dapps. So we offer a set of very powerful APIs and advanced developer tools that really streamlines the dapp development process and allows also like dapps to scale to many users.
Maestro provides the complete Web3 stack for Cardano. This is what it says right on your website. Oh, so what are the major components of the Web3 stack for a Cardano project that Maestro is going to be helping people deal with?
Sometimes misunderstanding is for releasing a dapp, you just need to build a smart contracts and then you're good to go. But there's a lot more that goes into it, into be able to deploy and run a dapp online on mainnet. And so Maestro really offer all the other building blocks that any developer would need to do that and to streamline that deployment process. The first one is our very popular blockchain indexer. So that's a powerful on-chain data API that gives you access to all the on-chain data, anything from transactions to UTXOs to NFTs, assets, anything that is on-chain, easily available in real time through our API. We also have our transaction manager. So that gives you kind of real-time monitoring of all your transaction state. Imagine your DEX or lending protocol and you have thousands of transactions happening on your website. You're able to get notifications on when transaction is pending, which transaction is rolled back or on-chain, and you'll be able to create very reactive websites that really improve the user experience for users. And then we have more low-level tools like our turbo transactions. So when the chain is on the load, sometimes it's hard to get your transaction into the mempool. So we help kind of propagate your transaction a bit faster and allow them to get on chain, more reliably. And on top of that, we've started building more advanced developer tools that a lot of the community have been asking for. So more recently, we deployed our market price API. So that gives you real-time, price data, candlestick data for either researchers or traders or even people building dashboard, so they can get access to all the live data of all the tokens being traded on Cardano, the prices, but also the number of holders, the circulating supply, the market cap, the price change. And that's very powerful if you want to build, a trading bot, so you want to build some kind of dashboard. And lastly, we have our plug-and-play smart contract. So this is, I would say, our most advanced tools and service on our platform, where it allows you to basically automatically deploy and execute smart contract end-to-end. And so really providing you the full stack of the on-chain code, the off-chain code, the transaction building, and very simply with very low code or no code, be able to deploy and execute contract into your application.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the smart contract marketplace and how it ties into the plug-and-play smart contract service?
This actually all came together thanks to a front-end Catalyst proposal. And that was in partnership with Anesthesia Labs, which is a really well-known auditor and smart contract developers. And we wanted to solve a key problem, right? So both Anesthesia Labs and Maestro, we work with a lot of dapps and builders in the space. And we saw that over and over again, people are rewriting the same smart contracts again and again. And that's because there's not enough open source contracts available for everyone for people to leverage. And so what happens is people are reinventing the wheels and kind of writing code and contracts that could be leveraged from other people. And so we realized we're missing a marketplace, where people can contribute and make it easily available, all the awesome open source contracts that people have. But it's also about sharing, the right engineering practices, the right Pluto's design patterns that people have discovered, and allowing people to then build on top of that, right? Either use those contracts to build a new innovative dapp, or even extend those contracts and provide more innovation or more composability between other protocols. And that's really what's going to allow us to like supercharge DeFi on Cardano and allow people to build new and innovative projects. And so we've put this marketplace together. It's free, it's public for anyone to even contribute, and anyone can add their smart contract. The only condition is that smart contract has to be obviously open sourced. And we can also help and show which contract is audited, and then hopefully maybe rally the community around, bring more resources to audit some of those contracts that are not audited. And then on top of that, we've built what we call a plug and play contract. And so that's where we pick a certain number of contracts and we build a full end-to-end kind of white label application around it. So we allow you to basically deploy and execute those contracts with very low code. And so this is for the people that maybe don't really know how to execute contracts or build dApps end-to-end, or people that don't have technical skills. They could still go to this marketplace and find the contracts that have been integrated into our plug and play service, and allow them to very easily add those functionalities into their websites. And so to give you 2 examples, right now we have contracts available called linear vesting. Allows you to, if you need to distribute token in a trustless, decentralized way to your community and have them linear vest, you can do that through this contract very easily. And more recently, we just released our direct swap contract. And this is a pure peer-to-peer trading contract. So you can trade tokens, you can trade NFTs, and you can even trade bundles of tokens and NFTs peer-to-peer without any batchers. And that's all integrated through our plug and play, so that very easily you can add that functionality to your website and allow your community to trade in a peer-to-peer trustless way, bundles of tokens or NFTs. And so the long-term vision is to have a lot of these more contracts be integrated into our plug and play. And one thing I want to add as well is this contract can have no fees, but sometimes those contracts have like contract fees that go back to the author. So we wanted to create an incentive so that if you are an author of a smart contracts and you make them available to the marketplace, then you can encode a kind of royalty fee, right, to that contract. And so as the author, every time someone uses your contract, you get kind of a kickback and a fee, which is fantastic for incentivizing developers, to open source that contract and feel like they're also getting something out of it by sharing their work to the community.
Oh, that's really interesting. Could you double click on that real fast? Normally when somebody thinks about, an open source contract, you can just fork it or whatever. So how do you attach royalties to this and create that incentivization?
Yeah, contracts can have encoded in them, fees, so that every time a transaction is built, there's a portion of that fee that can go to whatever protocol that designed it. And so some contracts don't have fees, but some do. I just want to say there's an option there for people that do contribute the contracts that they can encode a fee into it. And all of that is public in our documentation. So as a user, you have full transparency on when you use contracts, which contracts are free and which contracts have fees. But at the end of the day, all these contracts are open source. So you're free to also fork that contract and use it for yourself. But we also want to onboard people that are maybe less technical, that do want to use smart contracts, that necessarily don't have the development team or the time to build one themselves.
If somebody wants to get started using Maestro, how do they do that?
Yes, so go to our website, gomaestro.org. We have a free tier available to anyone, so you can really try and test all our services that I've talked about and really play around with it. And that free tier is enough to even build a sandbox dapp. And if your dapp has very low traffic, you can actually just stay on the free tier. But then we have like more higher tiers that starts at $9 a month for anyone that really want to build, high throughput, highly scalable applications. We're already powering, some of the top protocols in the space, top DEXs and lending protocols, wallets, etc. So our platform is really battle tested for, from one developer to like some of the biggest apps with tens of thousands of users. And then we have like our ISPO marketplace and our smart contract marketplace, which I mentioned, which these are completely free and public for everyone to use and play with and contribute, right? So if you want to contribute contracts, you can go to our GitHub and automatically any contracts that gets added to the marketplace will be displayed on our website.
Well, thanks, Marvin. Thanks so much for joining us on the show, and really looking forward to everything coming out of Maestro.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So a big thank you to Axo and Maestro for joining us today, and a shout out to some of the other projects launching products or innovations this month, including Serverless Kupo from Demeter Run, the new Sunday Swap v3 white paper, which we previewed in last month's show, and of course the fiat-backed USDM stablecoin from Man. We're looking forward to having the team on the show soon. And if you want to suggest other products or projects that are helping build out this vibrant ecosystem to feature on the show, make sure you check out the link below and make your suggestions. The Cardano Foundation recently announced their 2023 activity report, showcasing the work that they've been doing to advance operational resilience, education, and Cardano adoption. The Cardano Foundation's very own Fred Griegard stopped by to share some highlights from the report. Let's check it out.
Hello everybody, my name is Frederick Griegard. I'm the CEO of the Cardano Foundation. As you probably know, the Cardano Foundation is an independent, Swiss-based, non-for-profit organization tasked with advancing the Cardano as a public digital infrastructure across a wide range of industries. We work around three main deliverables. One is operational resilience, education and adoption, and ensuring that Cardano also in the next 10 to 20 years is a leading public infrastructure for the world. We engaged multiple stakeholders across society, including regulators and policymakers, enterprise businesses, developers and SPOs, and the larger community. So what I want to talk about today is really the activity report. So we've basically launched an activity report which talks about our actions and our activity last year for 2023. And there's a couple of highlights there which I think is really interesting. So the first one is really increasing operational resilience through initiatives such as enhanced network monitoring, through a project to build real-time monitoring capabilities of global block propagation. Now, if you browse through the report, what you see is some common examples where we actually work with exchanges about optimizing their stake pools in order for us to have a better network for everybody, for all citizens on Cardano, but it also creates a win-win situation for the actual exchange, that it increases the likelihood for them to get rewards. Further to that, the advent of Voltaire, Cardano's development phase, relating to governance, has included the release of the first draft of the CIP 1694. So I think this is a really big highlight, but also what we did around the SPO voting event, where we actually used cryptographic primitives was already on-chain to allow SPOs to represent a vote for the larger community. Those learnings basically around the K-factor and so forth is some of the things we are now bringing into Intersect, but also bringing into the work around a future constitution and any guardrails and any ways we can sort of ensure really effective voting mechanisms, both the social side of them, but also the technical side. Then another point is around enabling real-world education to a variety of stakeholders, such as a couple of new successful partnerships to advance blockchain adoption and showcase the versatility of the Cardano blockchain. That includes the Brazilian state-owned energy company Petrobras and a full-stack apparel system called Merchandise. So basically connected clothing, which is very interesting because you can basically do things such as provenance, track and trace, but you can also create a complete different experience when you enter the stadium, for instance, where you have different tickets which is embedded in the fabric, but you can also then use that in the Web3 settings for gaming or for other things. So you can basically wear this apparel in Web3 as well. So I think this is a good use and a good use case to really showing that the Cardano blockchain excels when we speak about metadata, both dynamic and static, but also off-chain and on-chain. Plus, it allows us to turn the use cycle around and be basically, when you think about data privacy and other things, you can basically have what's called reverse solicitation of data. Then providing a spectrum of tools and expert resources at no cost, including the Cardano Academy, which basically is a free resource housing the Cardano blockchain certified associate, which is truly important because that basically also spills into the Cardano Explorer. So our ability to articulate the implementation of Cardano is very important, specifically to regulators, policymakers, and outsiders who's not native in the code. And then, of course, we had the Great Cardano Summit in Dubai in November 2023. So some of these novel initiatives is also the launch of Icon, which is a new open source programming language, which we launched in April 2023. And we actually saw here in the month of February, that 19% of all smart contracts on mainnet is actually using Icon. So this idea that you can contribute to a Rust-based coding language is really something we see is moving adoption and making it more attractive for other developers, not just in blockchain, but also outside blockchain, to dabble around and actually explore why Cardano is so special. So many of these freely accessible tools developed by the foundation, like the open source identity wallet, as well as the searchable data provisioning tool called Ledger Sync, is both meant to drive adoption, but also to accelerate enterprise onboarding. And then, of course, we keep doing our blockchain for good business, where we have a sustained progress on the foundation's partnership with Switzerland for UNHCR, where we basically have a Cardano community that's already raised 5.2 million ADA to support displaced people around the world. And if that's not sufficient, we are actually also working with United Nations through this project to bring the Cardano blockchain as an infrastructure into United Nations, making United Nations much more transparent and giving them a new set of tools to interact not just with donors, but also on how they run their operations. Our flagship event, the Cardano Summit 2023, was a very big success. We've seen a major growth in the size of the Cardano community in 2023. And we also saw the broadening of the number of use cases associated with the Cardano blockchain. So Cardano blockchain now spans a whole range of different industries, being native digital, so all the way to being, healthcare plans and insurances and even, track and trace solutions for commodities and industry goods. So I think this is something which is really worth mentioning. Huh? Now for the next year, we have a very set plan. We call it the tactical implementation plan. And we are very open about it, but in highlight, some of the things we're looking at achieving is even more contributory open source around the general Cardano infrastructure, but also the tooling. We're looking at expanding the Cardano Academy, get more languages on it, but also ensure that it's being adopted in many universities and regulators start seeing it as a de facto Bible on how to actually understand third generation blockchains. We're hopefully soon launching a new version of the Rosetta application programming interface. It will be written in a different stack, and it's really good in terms of the standardization for large applications, but also for exchanges and banks. Then we're continuously working on the Cardano Explorer, which is our RegTech tool made for regulators and policymakers, and where you see more business logic coming into it, also encouraging projects to show their business logic in there, such as triaging of smart contracts and so on. We'll be across the world at multiple events representing Cardano and spending quite some time and also on doing product marketing for the Cardano public infrastructure, but also for some of these use cases. So I think this is again something which is super important. Now, a cry to action from my side would definitely be to check out our new website, cardanofoundation.org. Go to the developer portal, get inspiration about some of these things which has already been built and deployed, and where you can actually download the code and look at some of the containers and the operating models. And definitely have a look at Icon. Icon has really lowered the barrier for doing meaningful smart contract building on the Cardano blockchain. So thank you very much for having me today at the Cardano360 in March. And I'm looking very much forward to interacting with all of you across various channels and seeing you building and deploying on Cardano, the world's best blockchain.
So thanks, Fred, for that and sharing more details about the report. And if you want to dive in further, read more about the collaboration with Petrobras, Connected Clothing, Icon, the Cardano Academy, UNHCR Sustainability Initiatives, and the Cardano RegTech Explorer, you can check out the links below. Well, that's nearly it for March, but before we go, just a few other things to bring to your attention. March represents Women's History Month, and in honour of that, IOG and Reflect Studio are giving you the chance to win an NFT and celebrate the heritage of innovation. So check out the link below and be sure to highlight some of the women building out Cardano for a chance to win a commemorative NFT celebrating Women's History Month. But act quickly, just a couple more days to enter. You might also want to check out the latest update from the EUTXO team, the new stablecoin venture IOG announced in October last year. So check that out using the link below and follow the EUTXO team on X for more updates. Last but not least, congratulations to the city and community of Barcelona, which you voted for as the venue for the first ever live Project Catalyst launch for upcoming Fund 12. Felicidades. That's it for March. Join us again next month for more highlights from the team here at IOG and just some of the projects building out the Cardano ecosystem. But for now, remember, like, subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're the first to know when the next show drops. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in April.